Thank you. I work with the Utah Oral Health Coalition, serving there and helping on the fluoride, and have been one of the team members trying to get fluoride kept in Utah. Everybody knows we were unsuccessful on that political coup, but we're doing everything we can to continue on. So tonight we are happy to have Dr. Johnny Johnson and Matt Jacob with us from the American Fluoridation Society. They are going to talk with us about, I love the title, Matt, having brief and positive chairside conversation with our patients about fluoride. So we'll be talking about that tonight. There initially had been a mention in the announcement about more detail about the tablets and other fluoride alternatives. That information is not ready yet to be shared. So tonight we will just be talking about having conversations, and we will get the other information to you if we need to reschedule one of these things. If that's warranted, we'll do that, but we'll make sure you get that other information when that's available. It's covering this in areas that have been fluoridated with water. There's still some debate about different natural levels and things like that. So I will just briefly say I've had the pleasure of working with the American Fluoridation Society for almost 2 years. They helped us win the battle in Brigham City and helped us again here in the state of Utah. They are extremely knowledgeable. They work closely with the American Dental Association, and we consider them experts in the field as well as good friends. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Johnson and Matt to get started on our fluoride training. Please note that in the chat, there is a comment that a QR code will be displayed at the end that will allow you to request your CE credits. So you can get those for this hour that we spend together tonight. So Matt and Johnny, thank you so much. And the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lorna. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for allowing us to come into your homes tonight or wherever you may be watching from. I'm Johnny Johnson. I'm a pediatric dentist. I got involved in water fluoridation way back when. The county I lived in stopped it. My background was in when research was in infant formula fluoride content when I was in my residency and published a paper on that. So I had a lot of fluoride experience and fluoridation through the research that I've done. Matt Jacob is a close friend. He is a consultant to AFS. We're joined at the hip. Matt has a history background of the journalism, and he is as knowledgeable about fluoridation as any dentist I've ever met. Also a very well published young man. Next. Want to set some objectives for us, just kind of really hit hard on two of the ones I really want to make sure that we walk away with is how to have a protocol chair side with your patients, the dialogue there, where you have that captive audience and you get to talk. The second is some clinical strategies to consider offering your patients things that you can say to them since water fluoridation has stopped or will be stopping shortly in Utah. Next. The National Institutes of Health, which you probably have heard of, a lot of things going around from the National Institutes of Health. This was a Oral Health in America report that they published a couple of years ago. They really emphasize the use of fluoride-containing products as one of the most important strategies that we can use in dentistry to help prevent decay for everyone. Next. And that's of any age, especially on the elderly end of it, where I am now with a dry mouth. It's something that we want to look at as topicals. They also said that not only does water fluoridation confer a protective effect beyond that of other sources of fluoride, like in toothpaste, mouth rinses, and fluoride varnish, it can especially benefit the children from low-income families, like I was just at a meeting at here shortly ago, 25% poverty in this little town. Thankfully, they were going to vote it out, but they changed their minds. Thank God. Next. I want to show a little cute video that we thought of to really show others what's going on when fluoridation stops. This is what happened in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, when fluoridation stopped, where they had Edmonton, which is fluoridated 90 miles to its north, and was being compared and looked at between the two cities as far as cavities in second graders and what happened when Calgary stopped fluoridation in 2011.
Calgary and Edmonton are two cities in Western Canada, but Edmonton has something Calgary doesn't: healthier teeth. Edmonton's cavity rate is similar to what it was in 2011. Its drinking water is fluoridated. But in Calgary in 2011, officials chose to stop fluoridating its water. The cavity rate for children in Calgary steadily rose. This is why Calgary voted to resume fluoridation. This used to be a natural difference. Some water naturally had more fluoride than others, so some people had stronger teeth. Then, starting in the 1940s, many North American cities began optimizing the amount of fluoride in drinking water, just the right amount for the strongest teeth. Today, cavities and tooth loss are much less common. Now it's a political difference. Some politicians are abandoning fluoridation to please an anti-science minority. That causes more cavities and tooth loss. To learn more about the science and protect your children's teeth, ask your dentist or pediatrician, or visit us at the American Fluoridation Society.
As you can see, that's what House Bill 81 is all about. Same thing here in Florida, that this was not designed for you all. This was designed knowing what's going on in communities. That's just on a mass level. And we're going to help get it back. We are not done with this. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. I want to kind of turn now in this phase of this webinar, and we're going to talk about why this is such a great opportunity. On the one hand, I think we are not just in Utah, but dental providers and people who care about public health and oral health across the country are obviously disappointed about the news in Utah, and there are other communities in different areas of the country that are being challenged and have stopped. We're winning many battles, but we're losing some. So I want to talk about why dental teams need to seize the opportunity that's before us. This is a big part of it. We know from the experience of House Bill 81 that a lot of people in positions of authority, politicians, for example, can be misled. They can be told things that are just not accurate. And if they can be misled, we know that patients can be misled. So it's really important for us to educate our patients. We want them to have optimal health. We want them to keep their teeth and their gums and their oral cavity as healthy as possible. So when we know images and videos and very inflammatory language like this is circulating online, we can't take it for granted that our patients are always going to be able to separate fact from fiction. The other thing is this is such a unique opportunity for dental providers. Why? Well, we know that when we are in a dental operatory with a patient, we have a direct line of communication. We do not allow patients to hold on and play with their cell phones, so we don't have that distraction, right? They are focused on getting care, and you all are focused on delivering it. The patient's body language also, their eye contact, things like that help us understand whether they are following us, whether they understand what we're saying and what we're talking about. It also gives them a chance when we start to wrap up care to ask questions, to tell us what concerns they may have or what questions. So that's a very valuable opportunity. Now, are people going to listen to you? Well, I think there's good news here. It is very easy to feel cynical and to kind of throw our hands up in the air and wonder whether we can make a difference. I want to tell you that dental providers are a trusted source, and that's just not my intuition. The Gallup poll did a survey several years ago where they asked Americans, they threw out about 25 to 30 different professions. And they asked Americans, which of these professions do you feel are honest and ethical? And of all of these, dentists were one of only 5 professions that were rated by at least 60% of Americans as having high or very high honesty and ethical standards. I think that is certainly something that you can take heart from. Just FYI, they did not ask about dental hygienists specifically. They asked just about dentists. But I think it's reasonable to assume from this
Oh, sorry,
that
babe. I'm in now, so I
their
gotta leave.
dental providers are viewed with trust, and all the team members are viewed as having the same goal and objective, which is keeping them healthy and delivering quality care. If that's not enough, there's a survey that came out about 3 or 4 months ago, right after the general election. And this survey was done by Axios and Ipsos. The poll asked Americans, do you have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the health information that is provided by various sources? These were not all of the options given, but this is a pretty key summary of it all. Now, you'll notice the numbers vary quite a bit. You'll also need to keep in mind that, for example, people who were affiliated as Democrats or identified themselves as Democrats, they were in the 80–85% range when it came to trusting CDC. Republicans were around the 35–40–45% mark. Right. So when you broke it down by partisan identification, party affiliation, these numbers vary somewhat. Donald Trump's view as a source for health information was around 40% for Republicans. It was in the single digits among Democrats. So there's a lot of variance here. I think what we can take heart in is this. When people were asked about their own doctor, that didn't matter. Whether they were a Republican, whether they were a Democrat, whether they were independent, that percentage was in the high 80s. So there's a lot of consistency here. Once again, I think the takeaway is the people who are closest to me, the people I trust, the people I've gone to obtain care for at least a few years, I view them as people I can trust. I'm going to listen when they have information to share. Let's walk through now a protocol for chairside conversations. Before I begin, I just want to make sure you all know there's no need to jot down notes, to take little crib information on a pad, because you will get a PDF copy of this slide deck. Lorna Kosai will send that out to participants. So you have that as your little reference point. You don't need to jot it all down because we know we're going to be moving quickly through this. So we want to break this down and first talk about those of you who are practicing in what we would now refer to as a previously fluoridated area. So we're talking, of course, about areas like Davis County, Salt Lake County, Brigham City, where you did have fluoridated water up until just a matter of weeks ago after the passage of House Bill 81. So this is literally the language we would advise you to use with patients. And whether it is the dentist saying this, whether it's a dental hygienist, if there's someone else in your practice or clinic who's going to be providing this information, please walk them through this script. And when I say script, please take that loosely. I am not intending, Dr. Johnson and I are not intending for any of you to literally word for word say precisely this. We want to give you some license to feel comfortable and to own this language, but this is generally the approach here, right? So first and foremost, we want people who used to be in fluoridated communities, as much as we may assume they know what has happened, some of them are not going to know. Some of them have busy, hectic lives. Many of them have busy, hectic lives. And House Bill 81, what it said and when it was signed into law, that's something that they're just not privy to, they're not aware of. So we want to make sure they know about it. Have you heard the news? Our local drinking water no longer has the recommended amount of fluoride to prevent cavities. And this was caused by a new state law. The length of the sentences, we always want to take that into account because that's one element of plain language. We know our patient populations vary quite a bit. Many people in our patient populations are not the kind of people we want to throw a lot of clinical language at. We don't want to use very long sentences because we know that's going to make it a little tougher to understand. So there are two implications to this, right? And then you'll continue by saying this change makes it even more important that you and your family, depending on whether it's a parent or just a patient, we don't know whether they're just living alone or whatnot. It's more important than ever that you brush at least twice each day with a fluoride toothpaste. This is a very important point. The second one, fluoride toothpaste is not a substitute for fluoridated tap water, but brushing with fluoride toothpaste twice a day is a good way to strengthen your teeth, make them resistant to cavities. So the goal here is really to convey a message related to oral hygiene that is always important, right? We always want to urge our patients to brush twice a day at least using a fluoride toothpaste. But we also want to make it clear that is not a substitute for fluoridated tap water. Unfortunately, there were some legislators, not only in Utah, but in other areas of the country, who seem to believe they've been told by opponents of fluoridation that, oh, people can just use fluoride toothpaste. And we know that it is not a one-to-one substitute. They are both necessary. If a patient asks you in one of these communities how the new law will affect them, you'll continue by pointing out really one of the messages that video that Dr. Johnson showed pointed out. And that was, of course, after water fluoridation stopped in two large counties, there were studies that were done, and those studies showed that their tooth decay rates increased significantly. In fact, one of these cities experienced a 78% rise in the rate of children who needed to be treated for decay under general anesthesia. So that's a really key point we think you want to convey to your patients that, and I think that really puts it in context, right? It's a good way to remind people that tooth decay can begin, that the caries process can begin very early in a child's life. It does, there are some parents and some caregivers who may think, oh, all of their baby teeth, all of their, primary teeth need to be in before something like that can happen. Well, no, that's not the case. I know you know that, but they may not know that. So this general anesthesia study that was done in Canada showing this major increase is something that's important to mention to them if you have the opportunity. And then fourth, we want to point out to people that not only are there more cavities when you don't have water fluoridation present, those cavities are more severe. And the situation got so bad that both of these cities changed their minds and they voted to resume fluoridation. By the way, the slide doesn't say it. Those two cities are Calgary, which is one of the largest cities in Canada, and the other is a city named Windsor. It's really right across the border from the city of Detroit, Michigan. If a patient asks, well, why would the legislature do this? This is the message we would recommend. There's a lot of false information online about fluoride, and unfortunately, opponents misled our legislators through their appeals, through their emails and other information. These factors seem to have driven their decision. This new law will take the choice away from local communities. We think that's something important too, because there was some misunderstanding about choice when it comes to fluoridation. Some state legislators said, people deserve choice, and they didn't seem to realize that Utah was a unique state in that no community could start or stop fluoridation without holding a vote of the local population. So, for example, Brigham City, it was proposed to stop a few years ago, and the public had a chance to vote, and they actually said, no, we don't want to stop. So that choice from local communities where it's closest to the local residents, we thought that was important, and that's unfortunate that was stopped. So now let's turn to people who are practicing. They have a dental practice or clinic that is in an area that has not been fluoridated, either ever or not for a number of years. So for them, we're going to take a little different approach, right? And this is to say, we want you to bring this up. And one way to do that is to say, hey, some of our patients have asked about a new state law on fluoride that you might have heard about. So I want to make sure you understand what's going on. Fluoride is a mineral. It exists naturally in our water supply, but the amount is too low to prevent cavities. Some other Utah communities had been adjusting their fluoride to reach the level proven to prevent cavities. This new state law stops them from doing that. Their cavity rates are likely to increase as a result. We've never fluoridated our local water supply, and the new law means we can never choose to do so. Now, if a patient in a non-fluoridated area asks why the legislature banned water fluoridation, again, this is the same kind of response. Number 5 is a little different. And I think what we want to say here is uh, that this decision was made without first going through channels of communication where dentists were reached out to and pediatricians were reached out and other people who are aware of the negative impact that tooth decay can have on a person's health or quality of life. I think it's worth mentioning this that they made this decision without consulting proactively. Just on the side, you don't need to say this, but the Utah Dental Association and the Utah Oral Health Coalition certainly made their presence known. They provided a lot of information, but it would appear that by the time that information was provided to the legislators, that many of them had sort of made up their minds, unfortunately. Now, there's a third category we want to be mindful of, and that is there are some areas of Utah that have natural levels of fluoride in water that are at or near the recommended level for preventing tooth decay. Now, for that reason, the new law will not change the amount of fluoride in our tap water. Just as a side note, this is one example of such a community. The local water system in Eagle Mountain, I don't know whether they have their own water plant or whether that water is supplied by an adjacent water utility, but Eagle Mountain is one of a handful of communities in Utah that actually has natural fluoride level that is at or near the recommended level. So these communities have never had to think about or debate or discuss having an adjustment in their fluoride level. And this isn't unheard of. Just to the north in Idaho, there are a number of communities that have natural fluoride levels that are at or near optimal. So anyway, that's more for your knowledge, not for your patients. So I think then the transition is to tell your patients, that's good news for us. When you drink the tap water in our community or you use it to make soup or other foods, it protects your teeth from cavities. And that's something to remind people of as well, because some people may think, oh, if I boil the water, that gets rid of the fluoride, right? We know that doesn't eliminate the fluoride. That mineral is still present, but it's worth reminding them, right? It's not just when you drink it. If you use it to make oatmeal, you use it to make soup, you use it to make tea. So just so people are aware. Now, no matter where you practice, let's talk about some things you can do and be mindful of as you get questions or you get comments from a patient. There are patients who may make comments or ask questions that make it clear they'd like to learn more about fluoride. Maybe they've already begun that process. And maybe they found some information that is very accurate. In some cases, they've stumbled on information that isn't accurate. And so for both those reasons, we want to encourage people to explore, right? People are going to do this. People go online. They refer to it as healthcare 2.0. So we need to be mindful of this. Years ago, a dentist said to me, well, Matt, boy, there's so much inaccurate information online. We've got to urge our patients not to go there for information. I said, well, good luck with that, right? So it's going to happen. So let's steer them to places where we know they'll get good, accurate information they can trust. So what we do want you to say, regardless of where you practice, if your patient seems interested in learning more, say to them, if you'd like to explore this issue some more, I have a website I can recommend. The website is ilikemyteeth.org, and this was created by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Like dental providers, pediatricians see the impact that cavities can have, especially at young ages. And just as a side note for all of you on this webinar, the Academy's website has a number of helpful resources. And these are some of the many, many questions that it answers for people who navigate here. Full disclosure, I am a consultant to the AAP's section on oral health, and I have assisted with this web portal. If you don't know the answer to a question they raise about fluoride, that's not a huge deal. There are a number of questions about fluoride and fluoridation, and you shouldn't be surprised that you don't know every single answer to every single question. So there are a couple of options here. First option is to say, I'm glad you're interested in this topic. Hey, I can suggest a website where you can learn more about fluoride, and they should have answers to the question like the one that you just asked me. So I invite you to go to ilikemyteeth.org. Another option is to say, give me a few days. I can look into that question and I can send you an answer by email if that works for you. In this instance, you'll want to reach out either to the coalition or to the Utah Dental Association. You may have that information handy on your own, and if so, that's fine. But we would really encourage you to reach out to one or both of those organizations because uh, there's a lot of expertise there, and it would be helpful for them just to have an idea of the kinds of questions that are being asked, especially ones that may be unusual or that we don't get more frequently. So I think that's very important. And if you do promise to follow up, please, to the best of your ability, we know how busy you are at your practice or clinic, but do follow up with them. That's going to build your relationship with those patients. Um, there may be some patients who will say, "Hey, I've done my research. I've looked into this, and I don't like fluoride, or I don't want it for myself or my kids." If that's the case, okay, all right, fair enough. They've stated their point of view. You've made an attempt to educate them and raise awareness, but we want you to avoid a confrontation, as I'm sure you do. So one way to do that is just to find a point of agreement and wrap up the dialogue on a positive note. These are two options to what you can say, some brief comments just to make it clear. I respect you as a patient. This is your decision about toothpaste and water. I wanted to share my information with you, and so look, that this is where we stand. So either of these are comments that you could offer back to close out that conversation on a positive note. One thing that can be helpful too is to find common ground between you and your patient, right? Many of your patients are parents, and many of you are parents as well, or even grandparents. So that gives you kind of an ability beyond the white coat to say, hey, I'm also a parent, and so I care about my children's health every bit as much as you do. And I've looked into that issue, and let me tell you what I know about it, et cetera. So that's another tool to keep in mind. Let me go through some resources for you and your teams that you can consult because we want you to have these handy. First and foremost, the American Dental Association has a wonderful document called Fluoridation Facts. This is the encyclopedia of good, sound, evidence-based knowledge. This document has been out for several years. The ADA, I want you to know, is very soon going to update this document with some new information. They update it every several years, and but virtually all of this is still very, very relevant. The document is hyperlinked here. When you get a copy of the PDF sent to you, you can click on this and it will take you right to it. The American Fluoridation Society, the group that I'm a consultant with, Dr. Johnson heads that group. Wonderful source of information as well, fact sheets, infographics, other resources. Please feel free to go there. The video we showed you is from the American Fluoridation Society's YouTube channel. Please consider going there, liking the page and following it. We're going to, in the coming months and years, we're going to look to be uploading new video content. I also want to circle back the Campaign for Dental Health, which is the website known as ilikemyteeth.org, right? This is the section on oral health of the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's not only a good resource for parents, but it can be a good resource for all of you. And for example, they have a really good search function. So if you are looking just to get a refresher on, okay, I want to kind of delve a little deeper and understand the IQ issue that some people raise, this is what you would see when you click on IQ for the search results. And there'd be a lot more as you scroll down. But it's a good function, it's helpful, and definitely invite you to check out ilikemyteeth.org beyond just recommending that for parents and caregivers. So now Dr. Johnson's going to step back in. I'm going to hand this off to him, and he's going to talk about some clinical approaches that are on the table that we would invite you to consider as you uh, continue doing what you do and do very well in a backdrop that is a lot more challenging now. So, Dr. Johnson?
You all call me Johnny. Matt knows that. Um, some of the things that you can look at, one of the real big ones for people that have moderate to high risk of decay is a 5,000 part per million prescription fluoride toothpaste. Clinpro has shown, Colgate has theirs. There may be others as well. This is actually you can use it in children starting at age 6 as long as they are able to spit and not swallow. Usually by that age, they're able to do so, but under that, they're not. This being 5,000 parts per million, being 4 times as strong as regular toothpaste is something we would worry about under the age of 8. They might develop fluorosis instead of whitish, mild to very mild fluorosis. They might start eking over into the moderate fluorosis appearance. Research does show that this stuff works. And certainly we know in our adult patients or even teens that have areas that begin to show with, we call them white spots. And you all know what I mean, decalcifications, but calling them white spots in early cavities for our patients helps to point out to them, hey, these things are starting to show up. If you have fluoridated water and it's no longer there, that's really important to show and say, these are the areas that we need to focus on. And if we still had fluoridated water, these types of areas would be less likely. Next. Dental sealants are, oh my God, you all know how important they are. And let me just say that most cavities occur on the chewing surfaces of molars. And as clinicians, we know that the incisors, canines, upper and permanent incisors, and canines will sometimes have pits, dens and dentae type of a pit. And even if not that deep, if it's an area that is deep enough to look at and go, it's deep enough to seal. Don't wait. We don't wait on anything. Being a pediatric dentist, especially, I will tell you that we seal primary teeth, primary molars. Not something that we were taught when we were way back when in school, but by God, I'll tell you, it stops a lot of decay. And premolars. Premolars aren't something necessarily that we would always recommend when we had sealants or we had fluoridated water. But you want to take charge and just seal up everything. Really seal it up. Parents will ask you, or I had 30-year-old moms coming in with the kids and saying, I never had cavities before. And I had sealants when I was younger, like you're doing today for my child. And I just got cavities. I went to my dentist. I said, where were they at on your teeth? And he said, well, we're on the chewing surface. I said, not in between. No. I said, well, ask your dentist to put them back on. For some reason, we think that once they wear off and the people become adults, it's not something we should recommend. Well, absolutely leave them in and keep going on. What we're doing is delaying the decay process, and those teeth get cavities quickly after they come in. And you've seen that time and again. We want to get them on as fast as we could. So please recommend sealants. Next. We should also make sure when we talk about fluoride varnish that we know that it is something that can be applied. It is applied in pediatricians' offices, which is a good thing. Pediatricians see these kids multiple times before we actually get them into our offices as pediatric dentists or general practitioners. So by the time they reach us sometimes at age 2 to 3, they will have seen their pediatrician multiple times and they are applying fluoride varnish. And if they are not, please take the time to reach out to them and say, can we talk to about fluoride varnish? If they're not comfortable with it, we'll go to their offices. I've done that several times and go, this is how you do it. And they see it and they're like, okay, we're comfortable with it. Then they start applying it. They can prevent a lot of decay ahead of time, or from developing, or even early childhood caries, cavities on the lingual, the upper incisors, those areas. They can apply it and slow it down. It's also particularly helpful for adults who've already had decay interproximal, also with crowns like I have. I'm on so many medications that my mouth is about to dry up and go away. I have had all of my crowns have to be replaced, and that's not a fun thing whatsoever. Applying, or even for your folks that are in long-term living facilities, applying varnish, the fluoride varnish will help them to prevent cavities from happening on their roots or slow them down. Also, one thing I'm not mentioning is silver diamine fluoride is also very beneficial in those situations. Next. Well, I guess I've talked myself out of slides, and so we'll kind of take it at this point and go to questions and answers. Or if you have questions, and you better have some, because I'll start firing them out at you guys.
Why don't we enter questions in the chat? And I know there is a comment on the chat where we should always prep pits and fissures with a fisturotomy burr before sealing.
Is that a question, or is that
I think
commenting?
it's a comment.
Some people do that. Not necessarily as much. One thing that evidence-based dentistry shows us in the ADA literature has it that if you seal over a non-cavitated lesion, and this purposely done, and this is where dental hygienists going into school-based sealant programs, that sort of thing, if the tooth does not have a cavitation, even if it has a stain, if it's not a frank hole, seal it, because you're cutting off the substrate. You're cutting off the foods and sugars and things that can get into that. In fact, if you look at the literature, there was one that had to be a dentist child. Nobody else would sit around and watch this huge area of dark lesion underneath the occlusal surface of a tooth. They sealed the tooth, and I think they went in about 5 years, 10 years actually later, and they took that surface out, scooped out the area where the decay was, and there was nothing active. It was totally arrested. So having to do some preparation on the tooth, you may feel that you want to do sometime, but it is not a routine necessary thing to do. Opinion on hydroxyapatite, is it able to help with forming teeth in children? Well, I've only seen it as a toothpaste, not as something that is to be swallowed. I'm not familiar with that sort of thing. I will tell you that as far as clinical information and studies, there's very few, almost a couple studies that have been done on hydroxyapatite. It should not be looked at as a replacement for fluoridated toothpaste. We have history, we have research on fluoridated toothpaste. Until good research comes out on hydroxyapatite, we should not be recommending it. And that comes from the gurus, powers to be, and I've seen the literature also. The date for the fluoridation to stop, I'm thinking it's May 27th. Is that sticking in my head for a reason?
No, May 7th.
Okay, the 7th was right.
May 7th, there is a press event that we are going to be involved with this Friday on May 2nd. But DHHS is organizing that and working with that. But May 7th will be the day that they can turn it off.
They don't have to.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I laugh, but I will tell you that I am totally committed to helping you all bring it back. Matt and I both are. This is something that's near and dear to us. Lorna, her coalition, your state dental association, the hygiene associations, everybody wants the same thing. There's no reason to have it go away. I was at a meeting a few minutes ago before this started that it was in a town of 3,000 people, and they were going to vote it out. And thank the Lord, I got to the meeting, and another lady who happened to be a operating room nurse was there and was able to talk to them. And some of the things you're asking about, things like autism, there were people who were saying it causes autism. Oh, I'm allergic to it. My skin breaks out. It burns my skin when I start showering. Well, those things all come from different sources. Truly, they're repeated over and over again. And like Matt said, it's a lot of going on the web onto the internet and going down a rabbit hole. Once you click on one thing, that takes you to another, takes you to another. That is not anything based in science. I mean, there's not a single adverse health effect whatsoever from fluoride at levels that we're talking about. IQ, ADHD, autism, cancer, none of those things have ever been shown to be associated with water fluoridation. Yet it doesn't stop people from doing it, saying those things. As far as the dosages, yeah, there's a chart. The American Dental Association has a chart. One thing that Lorna was saying at the beginning is that one thing that is not known yet, where your communities have fluoridation in place, what is the background level of fluoride in the water? Because fluoride's in all water naturally, as Matt was saying. It's just not always at the appropriate levels. Usually it's way too low. So to bring it up to 0.7 parts per million, say for instance, at my house, I had zero. I'm on a well with zero in it. Some wells can have up to 20 parts per million. This is something that we're working with Stacy Swilling, state dental director, and others to try and find this information out. And then, yes, supplements are a choice for children, definitely. As well, yes, we will be able to help you out with that as well. I'm going to be going to Matt and I both are going to the American Dental Association meeting this week, the National Fluoridation Advisory Committee, and we'll be talking about this specifically for you all, and hopefully not us, but most likely it's going to be Florida as well, getting it voted out. So this is going to be something that supplements are not good compliance. It's tough to get the kids to take them. It's tough to sometimes get your money to go get them. It's just a whole string of issues. So it's something that we will definitely be able to give you answers to. Myths and concerns, fluoride side effects on the body.
I think, Johnny, one thing I would say about the myths and concerns, whether it's about autism and other things, how to address those. First of all, where do people get the idea about fluoride being linked to autism? We don't hear that much. It is out there. It circulates occasionally. The major issue they try and raise is IQ scores, because there are some studies that have raised that issue. But the autism one, there's, I think, one or two studies. They've been criticized for their methodology. It's kind of an example of where you show a, quote, association, but you haven't necessarily taken steps to look at confounding factors like are there other behavioral issues at play? Are there any dietary or health history, medical history issues taken into account? A lot of the studies did not dig deep and get information on those factors. So I've seen one study out there that showed an association, but there aren't much in the way of research. I think some people may be jumping to the autism issue from the broader IQ issue as possible. Now, as far as addressing those, I think one thing that Johnny and I both agree on is chairside conversations, because they're proactive, because you're reaching people in a space where you're trusted, they view you as a source, they are an ideal way to do this. So doing it proactively before many of your patients stumble on this information or read it is really the ideal kind of environment to handle it, rather than waiting for somebody to necessarily come up and say to you, "Hey, I just in my Facebook feed this week, I was reading an article and it said this," right? So a colleague of mine had a very good phrase for it. He said, "It's much easier to scare someone than it is to unscare them." So your proactive outreach and conversation with your patients is going to really go a long way in helping, to address this. So I would definitely say you want to try and you want to try and be as proactive as you can. Johnny, I think you are on mute.
Do my best work
There
when
you
I'm
are.
muted. Yeah, I'm so good when I'm muted. One thing that I would like to add to what Matt's saying is that I think it would be really, really good for you. He gave you a link to the ADA fluoridation facts. They have a table of contents. If you have not used that document, it's not in print that you can order it anymore. It's 2018. I don't believe they sell them anymore. The new one should be coming out, really, really should be coming out soon. Um, Go and get that table of contents. It's about 3 pages long, and it answers almost every single question that you're going to be getting about autism, about IQ, about any any issues that you'll have heard about cancer. Those things are right there, and you will show you that, hey, the patients look at it. Okay, I'm wondering about that. Then they can have actually give them the link to the document, and they can go look at that. So it explains it very, very well. That's where the rubber meets the road on facts and myths, and it really debunks them, as well as the campaign for dental health. I like my teeth.org. Outstanding resources on what the myths are. There was a question about supplements and the pharmacies prescribing them. Yes, the pharmacists will be able to prescribe them. There's rules that are being put together for them by their governing body.
Please move
It's not, pardon,
at the table.
Ashley, were you? Oh, okay, sorry. Um, those rules haven't been set yet, and so that's still in the works. That's why there's a lot of things up in the air at one time right now. As far as a holistic patient wanting to use hydroxyapatite as opposed to a fluoridated toothpaste, um, it's it probably can't hurt. We don't know if it really is going to help. Fluoridated toothpaste is proven and definitely does the job. I've had patients that did not want to have fluoride varnishes in the office, did not want their kids to have them. They'd started to develop decay over time, and then all of a sudden, let's start doing it once a year as opposed to every 6 months. Well, that was a foot in the door, and sooner or later they start coming around. One question I saw too was about, since topical fluoride is what use topical fluoride is what works the most, um, primarily for our cavity prevention. But systemically, when we drink fluoridated water, use it in our foods, that gets into the developing enamel of the permanent teeth before they ever come in. What that does is it forms a tooth as hydroxy instead of hydroxyapatite. You get that fluorapatite mineral, which is more resistant to cavities, more resistant to acid attack. So you also get the chewing surface, the occlusal surfaces of these teeth are much different and more resistant to cavities than they would be if you did not have systemic fluoride. So there's been studies that have shown absolutely that if you did not have pre-eruption systemic fluoridation or fluoride in those teeth, you'd have more cavities because you did not have it. Both are needed.
Johnny, just one other comment about the issue of hydroxyapatite. And this is just from colleagues who have shared information with me. But while they are seen as beneficial, as you said, the research on fluoridation and fluoride is much more, many times more substantial than that for hydroxyapatite. It's starting to be researched more, but it doesn't have the volumes and volumes of research science behind it yet. One concern about hydroxyapatite is that it may not be as effective as fluoride is at preventing demineralization in more acidic conditions. So, the concern is that while fluoride is particularly effective at promoting remineralization, hydroxyapatite has a solubility that's going to be problematic in being able to achieve the same remineralization as fluoride would. So those are some of the issues that I've heard colleagues mention. I know more research will come out about hydroxyapatite, and we'll just have to monitor it.
There's a question on where to go to get the fluoridation document. If that question is related to the fluoridation facts, that is available on the American Dental Association website.
Yes, and Lorna, also we have that hyperlink in the
Okay.
slides so that when you send out the PDF version of our slides, they can simply click on that slide and they will be taken directly to fluoridation facts.
Great.
That link actually is on our website because the ADA got hacked quite a while ago, more 2 or 3 years ago, and they still don't have a PDF link on their website. If you go there, you have to actually download on the ADA's website. You have to download it and then look at it. Whereas the link, and there will be a link when the new one comes out on the ADA's website, the same exact way as we're hosting it on ours right now. So there will be a link the same way, but right now it takes you to AFS's website so that you can use it and download it freely.
Lorna, I assume it's safe to say that whether it's us doing a webinar or the coalition sponsoring something, that there will be another Zoom in the future about the topic of fluoride supplements. There are a lot of questions about that. And to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Lorna, but right now there are still a lot of things up in the air as to how pharmacists would actually handle that issue, whether somebody has asked whether they could do that without a prescription, et cetera. And it sounds to me like we don't yet have all the information to give definitive answers to that.
That's
Stacey?
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Swilling, would you like to unmute and address that?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yes, they have 180, Doppelt board has 180 days from the time the law goes into effect, which is May 7th, get the rule established. And I have been in contact with Jim Garfield, who is the manager of that board, and he doesn't have a timeline yet for when it'll be. Speaking to the natural levels of fluoride in water, we're still working with DEQ to determine that. So DHHS is going to recommend that people contact their local water systems, particularly Brigham City, Salt Lake County, Davis County, to find out how much fluoride is in your water. One thing we've learned is that on the My Water's Fluoride page, which does have natural fluoride levels, if you look it up by county and then your water system, those numbers come from reports that are done every 2 to 3 years. So, which is how often they're required to do them. DEQ really didn't, we've met with DEQ before many times at DHHS, and today was the first day they realized that prescription fluoride was not, the supplements was not a new thing. Like they couldn't understand why it was such a big deal now. I think they understand now, but we still, we're not sure how they're going to report fluoride levels in water. So we recommend you contact your local, or the patient contacts their local water operator to determine the level of natural fluoride in the water. Because if you look at My Water's Fluoride for the systems in Brigham City, Salt Lake County, and Davis County, they're going to say 0.7, which is the fluoridated level. Did that answer the question that I was supposed to answer? They got through a couple of things in there.
I think you went at it that they're still working on it. DOPL, DOPL.
Yeah, the Division of Professional Licensing, the Pharmacy Board will be making that standing rule for pharmacists to be able to prescribe fluoride without a prescription from a dentist or a physician. Now, dentists and physicians could prescribe them now, but you do need to know. I think you would need to take into account risk, whole things, a lot of things we can take into account, but risk level, caries, and how much is in their water, and then how old the child is. There is a document on the ADA website on levels and how to prescribe.
Thanks. Thanks, Dr. Swilling.
There's a question here on how to get the PDF version of the slides. We will be sending that out. Becky Waters at ADA, and we'll work with Kim Caldwell and myself. We'll be sending that out the same way we sent the invitations out.
There's one.
We've got a few minutes left. I'm looking to see many of the questions are getting answered, but I would invite you to speak up if you have a question that either you have put in the chat or not that has not been answered. Please go ahead and speak up and share your question while we still have a few minutes left.
Alejandro asked if you recommend fluoridated toothpaste and fluoride rinses. Is that good enough for adult patients? I would say the fluoride toothpaste and mouth rinses are going to help some. If it's over the counter mouth rinse, it's not going to be a great reduction in cavities, but it's all additive. But if you've got patients, certainly with any interproximal restorations, crowns, any sort of things that have had areas that show you that they're more prone to decay, then I would definitely prescribe a fluoride 5,000 part per million paste, absolutely, without a heartbeat. I mean, the differences that go on from the studies that have been looked at on cessations, it is just horrific. I mean, Israel's starting it back. Calgary it's imminent. Their plant's almost done. Windsor started it back. I mean, it's just they see the horrific changes. What's going on everywhere right now with these communities that are stopping, and it is by and large a political move by the folks that are doing it. They're going to see huge changes. It happened in Buffalo, New York. They stopped fluoridating in 2015, and the issue was the company that was overseeing their water plant. It's the same company that oversaw Flint, Michigan's water plant. I don't think I need to say much more, but after it was in 2021, an investigative reporter found out that they had not started fluoridating the water. They had to move a piece of equipment in 2015. Two attorneys filed a class action lawsuit against the city, and it was settled for $160 million because they stopped fluoridating. And they used these cessation studies to say, look, you knew what was going to happen and you stopped it. All that money is not being spent or split up. It's being spent on setting up clinics and delivering dental care that was needed because of this. So it absolutely, I mean, the fluoride. I mean,
yeah. Johnny, what about, there's one comment, maybe this is a good wrap-up question. Can you please talk about the topical benefits of fluoridated water in adults? How would you educate your patients on that? Can you talk about that briefly? Because we know that opponents often make it sound like there are only systemic benefits to fluoride in water. So what is your thought on guiding them on that?
Well, if it's on children, as I was saying, the tooth does develop with fluoride incorporated into the enamel as fluorapatite, so they're much more resistant to cavities. But when you're looking at it from a topical standpoint, yes, fluoridated water is a low part per million fluoride versus a toothpaste, which is a high fluoride. Just regular toothpaste is a lot more concentrated than our fluoridated water. But what happens is that when you're drinking water and it gets into your mouth and you swallow it, it's coated your teeth, it's coated your cheeks, coated your tongue. And there's this little wonderful thing between the plaque on your teeth and your tooth. It's called a fluoride reservoir. Plaque is not the smartest thing in the world. It actually sucks in fluoride and keeps it sandwiched between itself and the tooth. So when it tries to produce acid, that fluoride will help to slow the bacteria down, but also will help to repair any damage that acid may have done. Now, you're not drinking fluoridated water all day and all night. the benefits from fluoridated water
for
come.
replacement range. Oh, for your nice.
The fluoridated water benefit comes from low
How did
levels
I
of
do
fluoride
this?
being in contact
I somehow
with your
made
fluoridated water and toothpaste being in those areas of your mouth
mistake.
while you're sleeping or during the day. It's a low level of fluoride coming and mixing with your saliva. That's coating. It's continuously in contact with the teeth is where water fluoridation really makes a huge difference.
Okay. If we can make sure we put our phones on mute, that would be helpful. I think we're in our closing time. I would like to wrap up with a couple comments. First of all, thank you to Dr. Johnson and to Matt for your information. We greatly appreciate your responsiveness on our request for this. And we're delighted there's as many people on this call today as there are, and we appreciate their questions. I do want to make sure that everyone knows that there is a great amount of work being done behind the scenes right now, that this webinar tonight is one part of a plan that we are executing regarding this topic in our state. And I'm going to just share with you the topics in the plan. It's developing our standard messaging, public awareness, education, medical dental integration, keeping up with national information, working with the water systems and the pharmacies, looking at legislative matters going in the future, professional education and outreach, providing information on the supplements, the tablets and those, making sure we're maximizing our partnerships within the oral health and medical worlds, getting data and studies so that we can create a baseline for where we are now, and then be comparing the decay rate in the future and creating an online library. So those are things that are going on, and please stay tuned to your various ways you're getting information about what's available. And also please let us know if you're willing to help in many ways. We're going to need a lot of people to help with that. And if you're willing, let us know.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your help and everyone who's attending tonight.
Thank you all very much. You're awesome.
Thank you.